Okay, so welcome back. This is lecture number 13, and we are continuing with image segmentation. Uh, I wanted to complete image segmentation with one more topic. In fact, this is not the exhaustive list of all the available methods for image segmentation. There are many, but I handpicked some of them so that you get a variety of interesting aspects, right? So we discussed about simple edge detection to start with. Then we discussed about intensity based techniques like k-means, superpixels, outsource thresholding, region based techniques like regions merging and region splitting and merging, region growing, etc. Then we had a very interesting aspect of leveraging the graph theoretical concepts, right? So we converted the image segmentation problem into something like a graph with a supernode, two supernodes in fact, one as the background and the other one as the foreground, and then we use the graph concepts, and one example I took was the max flow min cut algorithm to actually separate them out, right? So that's interesting, and this week I will wind up the segmentation aspect with one of the again very popular technique known as active contours. And that's not really the end of segmentation journey. In fact, modern day approaches like to combine these classical segmentation with neural networks and come up with different ways of segmentation. So we'll touch up on some aspect of that in next week, right, when we wind up the course. So we also talk about morphological image processing this week, because that is like an extension of segmentation, where you may, or edge detection I would say, you may have multiple regions in the image segmented or edge detected, and then you want to actually sort of make it smoother. Okay, so you do techniques like dilations and erosions, and we talk about that in detail later on. Okay, so let's start with this interesting concept of active contours. Okay, so for this week. Okay, so this is an interesting concept. So let me actually introduce to you what exactly is this. So here the concept is actually something like, so far we discussed segmentation purely based on intensity and mostly at a pixel level, right? You let's say you ask the user to scribble the pixels, so then you consider that pixel, you build a probability distribution around it, basically nothing but the normalized histogram, right? And based on that you give weights to the edges of the graph and so on, right? So many techniques we discussed in that perspective, but everything was with respect to pixel level, or at least neighborhood of pixels. Now instead of that, the fundamental idea behind something like active contours, or some people call it a snake, is to have a segmentation based on some parametric evolution of curves. Okay, so using curves instead of pixel to pixel, you assume certain shapes and evolve them over time. Okay, so that's a concept. Let me illustrate it before going any further steps using MATLAB tool again. This is extended to this can be definitely extended to Python also. A lot of tools available. I will show one of them as well. Okay, and again go to the image segmenter. Okay, so image segmenter aspect. Okay, so let me just load that up, and again try to load an image. Okay, so let me just take again this example probably. Okay, so I use that example. You can even load a grayscale image. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, so it takes some time. Okay, so the image has come. Now let me actually do something like active contours here. Okay, I think we need to have a grayscale image in this case. Okay, so I just made it grayscale so that it works consistently with what we are discussing so far. And what we need to do is actually to first mark an ROI, okay, some region of interest. So I'm going to do that using here. Let me just, draw ROIs. There's an option. You can use assisted freehand, doesn't matter. So let me just draw something like this. So okay, so that's it. And now let me apply it and then close it. And now active contours will be enabled for you. You just click on that. Then there are certain parameters which we have not discussed about the algorithm in detail. So let's not discuss. So number of iterations is something like the number of curve evolutions. Okay, so the curve, what I've drawn here is a curve, so a border sort of, and this will try to shrink and exactly fit onto the hand. So that's what going to happen. And then there are many methods. This can be region based, it can be edge based. Okay, so different aspects. So we'll briefly touch upon them when we discuss the algorithm in detail. Okay, now once you set some of these things, you just put evolve. You can see the graph, the contour is evolving. That's why the name active contours, and it tries to fit after some number of iterations. So you can increase the number of iterations to higher if you want to proceed further. See here I put just 100, so it's sort of done with the number of iterations. So let me just put some increasing number, so let's say 300. Okay, so you can see it actually shrinking. Yeah, you can see the number here also, how many completed. Okay, so it's doing a very reasonably good job, right? And of course you can think about the complexity if I load some other image which is not really smooth as it is, right? The iteration is finished. So let me just do that. Let me load another image quickly and then show you. So maybe a complex image to start with. Let me just take this one. Okay, so the image has come as usual. Let me just draw the ROI, and this is really going to be interesting. So maybe I'll put here some ROI, something like this. Okay, that's it. So that's ROI for you. Apply, close, go to active contours again. 300 I'll just put it, and let's evolve. Okay, it's trying but it's failing now because you can see there's lot of local variations, right? But still it's doing reasonable job. It's not bad actually. So again, already see so many drawbacks for this algorithm, right? And we will discuss that at the end anyway. So that's it. So this is active contour. Okay, so I'll have many examples coming up, and maybe let's go to the details now. Okay, so as I said, it's segmentation is using some curves, some parametric curves. It's not driven by pixels or the location of pixels alone. It forms as a group. Okay, so as I showed you, this can start something like user defining the curve, and then that curve will evolve over time. Okay, or it can be something driven from the edges. Okay, all the edge detection algorithms like any edge detection and all, you can use them as the starting point and then evolve those curves as well. Okay, so different possibilities are there. So the evolution, so you have the curve. So this is not really about a pixel or 2 or 3 pixels or a neighborhood of pixels. This is about a curve, a parametric curve. Okay, so you start with that curve, and that curve will evolve over time. Okay, so it does 2 aspects. Okay, one is basically this aspect where it evolves, it adapts to image edges. Okay, so that's interesting. And then of course it has to be smoothly varying because it's a curve now. Okay, so the curve has to be smooth and the curve will look for edges. Okay, so talking about some 2 aspects of how to evolve that curve over time. Okay, and to satisfy this evolution, we know, of course, we need to have some measure, right? We are all engineers. We are going to implement the algorithm, so we can't talk in there. We have to define certain things, and one of the things or one of the aspects in active contours or snake is actually a measure of these 2 aspects. So it has to actually look for edges. It has to very smooth. Okay, so this is parameterized by something known as energy of the curve. Okay, so and again, when I say curve, always think that we are talking about a plane, an image. So this C value or the curve value will be depending on the X and Y coordinates. Always think in that perspective. Okay, so let's define that. So the curve has 2 aspects. One is the internal. So that means internal to the curve, and that actually corresponds to this guy. Okay, smoothly varying aspect of the curve, and then an external aspect of the curve, and it will look for edges. Okay, so it should be very clear to you. So 2 aspects again, internal aspect which is internal to the curve, which is more or less trying to make the curve smoother and smoother, and then external, which is actually the direction towards which the curve should evolve, right? So the direction is probably looking at an edge in the image. Okay, you look towards edge in the image. In the case of the example that I show, the edge is basically the edge between the finger and the background, right? So that's a significant edge. So the curve should evolve towards that. So this guy, the external guy, will look for that. An internal guy at the same time sort of regularize the curve and make it smooth. Okay. So let's move on. And again, to have a more official definition of it, so the internal energy parameter, it depends only on the shape of the curve. So you want the curve to have some shape and you want to preserve that shape, and you try to minimize distortions in that shape. Okay, so that's what literally I mean. And the external part is what depends on the overall objective of trying to go towards an edge, for example, and it depends on the intensity of the image. Okay. So you will come to know. I have a lot of equations coming up, so you will come to know what exactly or how are you going to measure this internal energy and the external energy and all the related aspects. Okay, so let's actually start with this internal energy alone. That means it's purely based on the shape of the curve. Okay, so this is the official definition. So don't worry about the equations. I will make you understand it in a very crisp fashion. So this internal energy of the curve C is something like this. So you have a first derivative of the curve and you have a second derivative of the curve, and you have two hyperparameters alpha and beta, which are the weights that you want to allocate to the first order and the second order derivatives of the curve. Okay, and what this actually means, so the curve is divided into small segments, and 0 to 1 means actually you are covering the entire segment of the curve. So let me actually explain that using an example. Let's say I have a curve, okay, some shape, okay, like the ROI I governed. Now what I am going to do is, of course, this is a discrete system, so we have to actually divide this image or curve into so many segments, okay, like this throughout the image and all throughout. So let me say this is a starting point. Okay, so let me just draw it for you. Sorry for the time. Okay, so basically when I say this integral from 0 to 1, this aspect is nothing but you are traversing the curve, that's all. Okay, so you just go and come to here. Okay, so you start with, so this is the first, and of course this is the ds for you. This separation is the ds for you. Okay, and then most important aspect is actually this. So when I say each of these locations, so each of these location has an x and a y coordinate. Okay, so always remember that. Okay, so when we say this distance, it is actually x plus delta x and y plus delta y. So ds is in terms of these two aspects. Always remember that. Okay, so for the sake of simplicity, I expressed it in this beautiful expression. So you have a curve C of s, and you're going to take the first order derivative and you're going to take the second order derivative. Okay, so now let's talk in more detail what is the importance of this first order derivative and second order derivative. Okay, so first order derivative is to keep the curve not too stretchy. That means the two successive points that you take, okay, if they are far apart, your C dash S is going to be very high, right? So what exactly I'm saying, let's say I take this point and this point, this is far apart, then it's really okay. And if okay, let me just use a different color and explain to you. Okay, so the starting point, let it be same, and I'm going to take another point here. So this and then this, right? In this case, you are going to take far apart, and this is actually, if I take differencing, this value will be pretty high compared to this value, and higher value means you get sort of lesser smoother. It's like a straight line, right? Compared to this one, right? The closer value means it will be more smoother, and the extension increased means it means it's not smoother, right? So that's going to get measured by using the first order differential. Okay, so if that value is lower, that means you're taking closer samples, and this is sort of a measure of the stretchiness, okay, so of the curve. So this essentially keeps the point together, okay, closer. So the first order differential of the curve essentially gives you a factor of how smooth the curve is. Okay, so I want to convey that point, or how stretchy, okay, not smooth actually, how stretchy that curve is If they are far apart, it looks like straight lines or some polygons or sort of thing, right? If they are closer, it means it will be more sort of smoother curve or smoother evolution of the curve. Keep the points together. And the second order, okay, so the second order derivative actually ensures that the curve is not, so second order derivative in the sense like you are taking derivative of derivative, right? So it means that if there are too much irregularity in the curve, so too much oscillation in the curve, then that value will become higher. So you want to minimize that. You want to reduce this energy. Okay. So it's something like this. Obviously, if a curve is like lot of oscillations, this guy, okay, of this guy and of this guy obviously will be lower, right? So this internal energy will be lower for this guy compared to this guy if I follow these two expressions. So just to reiterate, we take the first order differential of the curve and the second order differential of the curve and weight them up and then sum them up, right? And that is the internal energy, and you want to minimize the internal energy to the lowest extent as possible. Okay, so by ensuring that, what we are doing is we are having a smoother curve and less oscillating curve. That's the objective. Okay, and again always remember this we are doing in discrete system in images, and xy coordinates represent this S. Okay, so this S is basically xy coordinate. Always remember that. Okay, and then C of S is basically sort of that location, right? You have these two locations. It will have xy coordinate for this, xy coordinate for this. Then first order is basically that distance between them, and second order is again taking that derivative of that. Okay, so I hope it's clear to you, and that's it on the internal energy aspect. So internal energy basically sort of keeps everything in term of the shape of the contour. Okay, so another interesting aspect I want to just have a understanding for you is actually always remember first order derivative, if you remember, is sort of anisotropic in the sense like it's not equal in all directions. Based on there is a directionality associated with it. Always remember the Sobel filter or the Privat's filter that we discussed some time back, right? So they have a directionality associated with it. On the other hand, second order derivative has no directivity. It is isotropic, Laplacian, if you remember. Okay, so always remember that. And interesting aspect about this actually is if you think the evolution of the curve, this factor also has an importance in terms of directivity. So I'm not going to discuss a lot in that detail. You can actually take a look at advanced algorithms in active contours, and in those cases they make use of the directivity of the gradients as well, okay, or the differentials as well. So here we will not talk about that in detail, but I just wanted to make sure you understand that point, because in spite of the energy in the first order or the second order derivative, so each and every point on the curve you basically consider the first order differential between them, second order differential between them, and then you do the norm to basically the sum of squares, and then you have that internal energy, right? But in addition to that, you can actually very well use the directional aspect. That's what I'm trying to point to. Okay, we will not discuss that in detail, but there is a possibility of leveraging that aspect as well. But if I'm confusing you, ignore all that. What I'm actually trying to say is there is an internal energy measure for the snake or the contour, and that goes like first order derivative, second order derivative, and the sum of it. Okay, so as simple as that. First order derivative ensures that all the points are grouped together or the distance between the point is minimized, and the second order derivative ensures that the curve is less oscillating. Okay, so something like this is avoided. You want to have a smoother evolution of the curve. And let's go to the external energy now. So what is this external energy factor all about? Okay, so as I said, I think the first slide, external energy is more towards the intensity. So that's why you have the intensity factor here, right? So you have an intensity factor coming into the picture. So the intensity of that particular location on the curve, that's what this means, and the square of that. And of course delta is basically the divergence, and this can be expressed in terms of the image, something like this. So you have the x direction, you have the y direction, change in intensity. Okay, so let me just put I is the intensity at the location of, so x of s and y of s are the location of the okay, let me just draw it again. Okay, so this is a curve. I have this location, so it has an x of s and y of s, right? So these are the coordinate location and intensity of that location. That's what I mean. Okay, so I of x of s and y of s, and then you of course change in x and change in y, and then see the change in intensity. That's what exactly we meant here. Okay, so this has more than the distance factor, it is on the intensity aspect. Okay, so you find the change in intensity in x and y direction, you sum it up. Okay, so that forms your external energy, and you have a negative term here. That's the interesting aspect. The reason I will explain as this. Suppose there is no edge nearby. Okay, so there is no edge nearby, then of course we know that the delta I factor or the dou I by dou x factor in both x and y direction will be minimal. It will be ideally 0, right? And you really don't have any external energy there. But suppose there is a big edge which is nearby. That means, right, the delta I factor will be very high. Okay, and since I put negative, I want to minimize this, right? I want to go in that direction. At the same time, I want to minimize the overall function, overall energy, right? And that is why I put a negative here. If my objective was maximization, I would not have put a negative here. I want minimization. I want to club the internal energy and the external energy together, and I want to go in this h direction. I want to go in the h direction. That is why if I don't have negative here, this value will be going extremely high, right? Because the derivative is going to, the intensity difference is going to be very high, and I want to go in that direction. But my overall objective is minimization of energy. So that is why I added a negative. So that means negative of this value. So it will be always going in a lower direction, right? So since my overall objective is minimization, I added a negative value here. Okay, so that's a key factor you want to notice. So if there is a big edge, that's the direction I want to proceed. Okay, so that's it. So you have, just to reiterate, you have a curve. So maybe it's a hand drawn ROI, just like we started. Each and every point is that S parameter, and S will have X and Y coordinates. Always remember, you have an internal energy and you have an external energy, right? This internal energy is basically purely determining the shape of the curve. It again has the first order derivative plus the second order derivative. Always remember. So first order will keep the curve smoother and less stretchy, and the second order will keep it smoother rather and less oscillating, and the combined effect actually is the internal part, which is basically ensuring the shape of the curve, and then club to that we have the external, which is actually driving the curve towards the edges. Okay, and since the overall we want to minimize, so this is your E of C, the energy of the curve, we want to minimize this. That is why this guy has a negative term, okay, in front of it, this negative value front of it. I hope I am not confusing. It's quite straightforward. There's no real difficulty here. So internal energy plus external energy, and this external energy is expressed in a negative way, so that you want to minimize the overall E of C. Okay, so if you're confused, just think of this way. E of C is equal to E internal of C, which is on the shape, minus E external, okay, of C. And external is depending on intensity, and this is depending on the smoothness or the oscillation factor of the curve. Okay, so I hope I made it very clear. And now, how to minimize E of C? So that's, we talked about all these things. Now as an engineer, we have to minimize it, right? And this is a parametric curve, and it's not really possible to actually have, I mean, if you want to do it straightforward, there's something known as this is a closed contour and all those things. I expect normal calculus won't work, and it needs a variational calculus, and we are not going to talk about that. That's beyond us at this point. Instead, what we do is we have this beautiful idea for images. The easier route is actually to consider it as a curve which is evolving over time. Okay, so C of S is basically that distribution of the curve, right? And what we are going to now do is we add a time parameter to it, and then what we do is we consider that evolution of the curve based on the energy over time. So next instance, so what I'm saying is this, let's say this is the starting point of the curve, okay, and then let me draw two aspects using two different colors, one which may evolve inside Okay, so let's call this as one instance of the curve next time. Okay, and let me use another color here. Okay, blue, which is outside of this curve. Okay, and let me use another color to now annotate. So this is my original curve. Okay, so this is our C of S comma T, and let's assume this is C of S comma T plus 1, and this is another instance of C of S comma T plus 1. Okay, so you have two options for this curve. One is to go in this direction or to go in this direction. Now I will decide how to go in whichever direction based on minimum E of C. Okay, so E of C. Okay, so let me just put this way, C of S comma T, this I measure, and then I measure E of C of S comma T plus 1. Okay, so difference between them will give me E, right, delta E or whatever. So I want to minimize this. So if this direction is going to minimize that for me, if this direction is going to minimize that for me, I will go in that direction. If this direction is going to minimize that for me, I will go in that direction. Okay, so that's how we will do the active counter evolution. That's what you saw in the demo, right? So basically, again to reiterate, instead of doing it in absolute sense, we define a time interval and we will have a new curve over a time interval and see whether that curve is the new curve from the previous curve is minimizing the energy. E of C, is it getting minimized from curve at time t to curve at time t plus 1? And you might think that it's a very complicated way of doing it. Okay, and then of course you see the evolution till that energy is within a certain energy is not going to change much. Okay, E of C is not going to change much from t to t plus 1. Then you converge it. You might think that it's very difficult to implement. No, I will explain that using a particular link. Okay, so you can always go back to this particular link. Okay, let me put it in the slide itself so that I will not miss it. Okay, so you can always go back and refer to this link. Okay, so this has a very beautiful explanation, a simple implementation of Snake's algorithm. So everything is same as there's an internal energy and there's an external energy. And sorry for the terminology difference here. The curve is defined by the S. Our C in the slides is S here, and our S in the slide is P here. So sorry for that confusion. Otherwise, it's quite straightforward. So total energy is the sum of internal energy and external energy. And then of course you can expand that as we discussed. Internal energy is a sum of alpha of your first order differential, beta of your second order differential. Same. And then the total, we can actually have this expression, right? So this is the internal energy minus external energy. Always remember the negative sign is because I want to maximize the energy in terms of intensity difference, but the overall objective is minimization. That's why I put the negative. So then it becomes negative. This is how you if you have, let's say in future you're working on an optimization problem where your objective is to maximize certain function and minimize the other function, and you want to combine them, what you need to make is just negative the maximization, then everything becomes a minimization problem, or negative the minimization equation, everything becomes a maximization objective. Okay, so you just understand that concept. It's very simple. I hope I'm not confusing it. So this part I hope it's clear to you. And then of course we do the derivative of this. If you want to minimize this expression, you obviously do the derivative in time. Okay, so that's the important aspect. So the time is the deriving factor or the differential factor here. Okay, and now coming back to how are we going to implement this. Of course this P or S in our term has an x coordinate and a y coordinate, right? And the first order derivative of x is nothing but this, and second order derivative of x is nothing but this, and similarly you have for the y coordinate also. And then the evolution over time. Okay, so dx of I by del of t is something like this. So this is the alpha term, which is the first order derivative. This is the beta term, which is the second order derivative, right? And similarly for y you have the same. And these two expressions can be expressed in terms of matrix formula, something like this. So it's an n by n matrix. Okay, so it's something like this. So just what I did is basically placed this in terms of metrics. So you can see over here alpha into so minus 2 x of t of I. So minus 2 alpha x of t of I, and that also has a term here 6 x of t of I. So that's why minus 2 alpha minus 6 beta, right? So this is the x of t of I term. Okay, similarly for beta y also it's the same term, and similarly you have the t minus 1 term grouped together, t plus 1 term grouped together. That's what happens here. So it forms a matrix, and then the linear algebraic way of representing this is, okay, so this is now a matrix formula. So that's why I use the capital letter here, or in fact they use the capital letter here, and then A is this beautiful matrix representation, and then this particular term, don't forget, so this is only the internal energy, and we have an external energy term. Okay, external energy term is here. Okay, don't forget that intensity expression, this particular expression, don't forget that. Okay, so that's what you have. Okay, so this is for the x part, this is for the y part. Okay, and then of course this dt is basically some small amount of time t. Okay, so that's the perturbation time that you choose, and then the expression, this is the expression that you're going to. So these are the new coordinate locations for x and y. It's quite simple. It's really not complicated. You just go through this web page, it's beautifully explained. So whatever I expressed in terms of mathematical, it's actually discretized and implemented here for you. Okay, so please visit this site so that you understand the algorithm very thoroughly. So just to reiterate, I think I'll show you some examples again, but just to reiterate, so I'll just move ahead. So what our objective is actually is something like this. You define a curve. This curve can come from user, as we discussed, right? The user draw an ROI, and then that's a curve for you, and then the obvious choice for you is to evolve that curve over time. To evolve that, you have this definition of E of C, okay, energy of the curve. This is a sum of internal energy of curve plus external energy of the curve, and this is purely based on the shape, and this is purely based on the intensity. And of course always remember this has two factors. The first order part, so let me just put that C dash of S plus C double dash of S, and of course you can add alpha beta parameter to it, and you want to minimize the energy of it, so of course you need to square. So this forms the internal, and then the external is basically that divergence, right? And this is a factor of the intensity. Always remember that, this guy. Okay, so I hope it is clear, and then of course you evolve it over time. Okay, let me just show you a very beautiful example I got from MATLAB File Exchange. I will share that with you anyway. So let me just go back to here. Okay, so if I type snake, I get this GUI. There's a very, very intuitive. I love the person, Imran, who has a lot of File Exchange interesting aspects like this. So here, this is a GUI, so it's very, very self-explanatory. So you have the continuity weight, curvature weight. So this is your alpha, this is your beta, okay, and this is your gradient weight, which is for the energy part, okay. And then of course a lot of other parameters which are associated with our algorithm. So this is the window you want. You can choose actually 3x3 window if you want to measure these, because you need to know how far you want to measure the intensity range and all those aspects, right? So you can actually the neighborhood you want to consider for evolving the curve. That's what exactly I mean. The next time you want to evolve within certain range, right? So that's what exactly here. And then stop criteria, some energy difference. If the energy difference is within this value, you stop. So that's it. And or you can put the number of iterations also. Now let me load the example image given by these people. Let me just load that image. So you have, and now I need to set the new initial point. So let me just mark certain points, and then you start. Okay, so some error. Okay, so I think I didn't do it properly last time. So let me just do it again for you. So let me just load the original image. Okay, so that's it. You will need to set the point and then press enter, then start. So you can see over here it's took the initial seed points given by us, and then of course it just tried to converge as closer to the axis as possible. We need to set the threshold slightly higher. As you can see over here. So that's the beauty about the algorithm. I hope it's very clear. And let me just set. Okay, let it stop. Okay, so it's done. So if I put some shapes over here, press enter, then it's gone, right? It's because there's no edge. Remember that there are two things happening. Smoothness is one aspect. Second is actually trying to find an edge. There is no edge literally here, so it's just confined. And there's a beautiful thing about this. It tried to minimize the energy, and what is the smallest energy possible? It's a point, right? And that's what exactly it did, right? There is no edge to find, so it just did it. So let me just set new point. Maybe if I put inside and start, again the same problem. There is no edge, and here the directivity. The interesting aspect is like if we give a slightly different probably regularization on the edge, maybe it may try to expand outside and find a particular thing. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. You can play with this in more detail, and let me just quickly conclude the lecture. Before that, yeah, so that's it. So this site also has some applications where you can actually see it in very clearly, and I encourage you to actually go through this. And let me just quickly wind it up. Okay, so this part is done. Now problems. So what are the issues with active contours or snakes? You already saw that in the first demo I showed you. So some of them is like never sees a strong edge that are far away, right? That's quite obvious. It just looks for that 3x3 neighborhood I was showing you there. One way to get rid of it is actually increase that range, but then the algorithm becomes slower and maybe too many false negatives will come into the picture. But there is an interesting way to solve this issue is by using gradient vector field. Okay, so how do you construct gradient vector field? Is by maybe using the edge map to start with. You start with edge detection, maybe canny edge detection, find all the edges, and for each of the edges I can see the direction. How do you find the direction? Use the first order differential, right? First order differential will give you the direction of the edges, right? Always go back to the lecture slides, we discussed that, right? So we can create a directional vector field throughout. Okay, so one image with edges with the directions, that's definitely possible. Okay, so when we say vector field, it's not only direction. Vector has always a magnitude and a direction. So magnitude is the intensity, so the edge intensity and the edge direction. So that's the important aspect. So you can start with that. So there are interesting algorithms in that aspect. Please, if you are interested, always dig deeper, try to read those papers out, and you will be fascinated by the extent of different thought process around this simple concept of active contours. Okay, so I encourage that. If you are having any issues understanding, always feel free to get back to me, we can discuss together. Okay, so the other issue can be a lot of noise can create, because the problem is like local gradients. Because there's a gradient, there is a gradient factor, right? We are talking about first order gradient in terms of the shape, and second order gradient, and then of course intensity gradient as well. So a lot of gradients, and any noise in the image will screw you up. So obviously you have to smooth the image before starting. That's one important aspect. And then can never wrap around multiple closed objects, right? If you have multiple things, if you have multiple, let's say, I'll just illustrate this. So let's say I have one region here, okay, and another smaller region here. So assume that, and then of course I do an ROI like this. You can't really get the result which is enclosing this sphere alone, right? Because that circle alone, because we are not given that provision in the code. So that's a key aspect here. Multiple objects is a problem. and then never see holes actually. So what I'm saying is this. So again, this is your shape, and then there is filling here. Okay, so this space is filled, but there is a gap here. If I put a ROI like this, it just converges to this, right? But the problem is there's a hole here. There's a hole here which is unidentified, right? So these are the issues, and these are the places where if you have images like that, those are the places where active contours cannot be used, or it's useless. In those places, you can use something like level sets. Okay, I'm not going to details of this. So this is something like similar to evolution of curves. You are going to evolve a plane. Okay, so a plane like this. So you start with the bottom part. You put a plane there in the 3D space, right? And then you move that plane upwards. So that plane is going to see a projection like this. So let's say the plane is exactly at this place. It sees a projection like this, right? If it is somewhere here, it sees a projection like this. Oh, by the way, I didn't explain it properly. Sorry. It's my problem. So this is basically a surf plot. What I'm showing you is a surf plot of the image. Okay, so it has two dips. Okay, so two dips here. And if I see it as plane by plane, I move a plane from bottom to top, I will see different projections, as you can see over here. And then here you can see these things are segmented out. Here you can see they are overlapping. So maybe you define a level where these two things are separated out. This guy and this guy are two separate sort of regions. I can separate it out, and that is what we can achieve using a technique known as level set. Okay. So if those who are interested, again go back and see level set algorithms. Again, interesting. So I will try to actually put some of these in terms of advanced topics which are completely optional. Maybe later part, maybe somewhere around mid of November, I will try to put it across. If you are free during your free time, you can always come back and see these lectures, but not part of image processing course. Okay. So those are advanced topics. So with that, I will wind up the topics on segmentation. So we discussed about, just to reiterate, we started off with edge detection. We discussed about techniques like Marr-Hildreth, canny edge detection. Then we discussed about thresholding algorithms, Otsu's thresholding, for example. Then we discussed about techniques like k-means, right? Multiple thresholding. And then k-means with not just intensity based thresholding, you discuss about neighborhood also, that is where superpixels came into picture. Then we discussed about region splitting, merging, region growing approaches. Then we discussed about the beautiful algorithm of graph cuts, where you convert image segmentation problem into graph theory, right? And then used graph theoretical algorithms to solve the problem for you. And in this lecture or this week, to start with, we discussed about this beautiful idea of active contours. I hope you enjoyed this and you want to dig deep into this. You are always free to do so. So with that, I sort of wind up the topics on segmentation, and we will revisit using neural networks. Okay, how can we do segmentation? Okay, so we have one more topic left for this week, which is on the morphological image processing, which is more of dilation and erosion. So we'll discuss that in the next lecture. Till that time, it's goodbye from my side.